So, when a country just decides to declare independence, is that even legal? It's a huge question, right? Well, back in 2008, the world's highest court was asked to solve this exact puzzle. And what they came up with was this fascinating, really subtle legal answer to a question with massive political stakes.
Okay, let's just dive right in. This was the exact high-stakes question put to the International Court of Justice. Now, I know the full official question is a bit of a mouthful, very technical, but what they were really asking was pretty simple. Was this Declaration of Independence in line with the law? And to figure that out, the court had to untangle a really unique set of circumstances.
So, to get to the bottom of this, the court had to first look at the very specific set of rules that were governing Kosovo at that moment. You see, this wasn't just any territory. It was under a special international administration, one that was set up after the conflict in the 1990s.
And at the heart of everything is this one document, UN Security Council Resolution 1244. You can basically think of it as the temporary constitution for this period. It laid out all the rules of the game for how Kosovo would be governed until, its final status was decided down the line.
And that rulebook created something called the Provisional Institutions of Self-Government, or PISG for short. These were the official UN-approved governing bodies on the ground. They were there to handle the day-to-day stuff. But, and this is a huge but, their powers had very, very clear limits.
And when I said limited, I mean really limited. Just look at this. The UN Special Representative basically held all the trump cards. They handled foreign policy, they supervised the local institutions, and they had the ultimate power to just cancel anything the PISG did that stepped out of line.
Okay, so this brings us to the absolute core of the case, the big mystery the court had to solve. When that Declaration of Independence was made, who actually wrote it and signed it? Was it the PISG, this official body that was bound by all the UN's rules? Or was it someone else? Seriously, the entire case turned on this one question.
And believe it or not, the biggest clue was hiding in plain sight, right there in the text of the declaration itself. Pay close attention to the wording. They didn't say, "We, the Assembly of Kosovo," or use any of their official titles. Nope, they chose a very different way to describe themselves.
And that one little phrase, it was everything. The court drew this brilliant, razor-sharp line in the sand. They argued that the people who signed that paper were not acting in their official jobs as the PISG. Instead, they were acting as a totally separate group, a group representing the will of the people, but completely outside that formal UN structure.
And look, this wasn't just a hunch. The court had receipts. They pointed to the actual evidence. First, the wording, like we just saw. Then there was the fact that the president of Kosovo signed it, even though he wasn't technically a member of the assembly. Plus, they didn't follow the normal procedures for making it an official law. And maybe the biggest tell of all, the UN guy, the one who had the power to shut it all down, he did absolutely nothing.
And that finding, well, that was the key that unlocked the whole thing. It was a total masterstroke. Once the court decided that the authors weren't the official PISG, the rest of the verdict just fell into place, kind of like dominoes.
So, it broke down like this, super logically. Step 1, did it violate the PISG's rulebook? Nope, because the authors weren't the PISG, so those rules didn't apply to them. Step 2, did it violate that big UN Resolution 1244? Again, no. The court said that resolution was for states and UN bodies, not for this separate group of representatives. And finally, step 3, did it break any general rule of international law? The court looked and said, well, there's actually no law anywhere that says you simply can't declare independence.
So the final verdict was in. The Declaration of Independence didn't break any rules. But, and this is so important to get right, saying something isn't illegal is not the same thing as saying you have a right to do it. The court was incredibly careful to keep its ruling extremely narrow on this point.
This is probably the biggest takeaway of the whole thing. You have to understand what the court didn't say. It did not create a right to secede for any group, anywhere. And it said absolutely nothing about whether Kosovo was now a legitimate state. All it did was answer that one super specific, technical legal question it was asked, nothing more and nothing less.
And that right there is the fascinating legal gray area at the center of this whole story. The court did its job perfectly. It answered the legal question. But in doing so, it left this much bigger political question, is it legitimate, for the rest of the world to argue about? And that is a debate that is very much still going on today.